Breathe with the bandoneon, Valentina. Maestro Ernesto Varela's voice drifted across the polished wooden floor of La Milonga de la Luna. Every Tuesday night, the studio in San Telmo smelled of orange blossom polish, mate, and the faint metallic tang of Buenos Aires humidity. Valentina Cruz, public library clerk by day and tango student by desperate obsession, followed his instruction. She inhaled, let the accordion's melancholy sigh settle behind her sternum, and pivoted into an ocho. Yet as she slid backward, the ball of her shoe caught on something, a shallow ridge in the parquet. She regained her balance, glanced down, and saw not a ridge but a patchwork of fine, overlapping scuff marks. In the low amber light they formed a strangely ordered pattern, like a child's chalk drawing left by ghost children. She frowned, but the song ended, and applause scattered her curiosity. When practice finished, the usual conclave formed around the urn of hot water near the mirrors. Ernesto discussed the upcoming exhibition. Martina Rossi, the studio's shining star, dabbed sweat from her brow, while two besotted tourists asked about private lessons. Valentina lingered on the periphery, but her attention kept snagging on that patch of scuffs. There was geometry there, right angles, tiny circles, an almost architectural neatness that felt entirely out of place amid the casual swirls of tango footwork. After the crowd thinned, she slipped off her heels and padded back to the floor. She crouched, tracing the faint grey lines with one finger. Lines met at 90 degrees, then dog-legged. Small X's like hinges dotted certain intersections. It looked, she realized, like a blueprint, except it curved with the wood grain, alive beneath 100 coats of polish. Lost something? Ernesto's baritone unfurled behind her. A mystery, she admitted. Look, don't these marks seem deliberate? The maestro knelt, his knees cracking. His thick eyebrows pinched together, then lifted. Strange. I had the floor buffed Sunday. Maybe the students dragged their souls exactly the same way? In tango, impossible. Ask 10 dancers to step, you get 10 signatures. He rubbed his chin. I'll have the cleaners look tomorrow. But Valentina was already cataloguing the pattern in her mind, the way she filed books at work. She grabbed her phone, snapped photos, and thanked him for the lesson. Outside, San Telmo's cobblestones glistened from a brief spring drizzle. She boarded the 29 bus toward her apartment, scrolling through the pictures. Enlarged, the scuffs looked even more precise, like graphite lines on cream. She Googled architectural symbols and compared circles for locking bolts, rectangles for compartments. A chill travelled up her arms. It resembled nothing so much as a vault door. She laughed aloud, ridiculous. But the idea nibbled her thoughts all night, until she finally fell asleep listening to distant traffic like rolling marbles. The next morning at the library, she shelved biographies, but her mind tangoed around screws, tumblers, reinforced steel. During lunch, she visited the Banco del Plata website and downloaded a glossy brochure on their new downtown headquarters. The PDF included an aerial diagram, public relations fluff, but she noted a circular vault room in the basement. 5 locking bolts, an antechamber at right angles. Her phone vibrated. A message from Damien Sosa, fellow Tuesday student and junior manager at that very bank. Damien. Practica tonight again? Need to nail my molinet. Valentina. I'll be there. Damien. Great, bring your sharp eyes so you can critique my posture. She stared at the smiling emoji longer than necessary. Damien's grin in person was just as easy. Though he moved with the slight stiffness of a man more accustomed to desks than dance floors, he possessed generous shoulders and warm mahogany eyes that crinkled when he laughed. Still, could generosity hide secrets? She scolded herself for suspicion, promised to attend, and resumed shelving. That evening she arrived early with a notebook. The studio smelled freshly mopped, lemon replacing orange blossom. Yet under the fluorescent glare she saw not a trace of the scuff pattern. Ernesto had delivered on his promise. The floor gleamed with innocent perfection. When the lights dimmed for practice, couples filled the space. Valentina danced with a German tourist, then with Ernesto, then finally with Damien. He wore a charcoal shirt rolled at the sleeves, revealing strong forearms. "I practiced at home," he said as they settled into embrace. "But my downstairs neighbors threatened revolution." She chuckled. "Soft knees, remember?" The orchestra struck up Poema, and they moved. Damien counted under his breath. Valentina followed. Halfway through, she felt him tense, pivot slightly off axis. She glanced down. Tiny new scuffs appeared beneath their feet, like graphite dust blooming from nowhere. They mirrored last night's pattern. Her pulse quickened. She looked up into Damien's face, focused, innocent, or a mask. She listened to his breathing, shallow from concentration, her own breathing tangled. After practice, Martina announced empanadas and beer at the cafe next door. The group cheered. Valentina begged off, citing work. She waited in the hallway until voices receded, then tiptoed back inside, lights off. Moonbeams filtered through the high windows, kissing the floor with pewter stripes. She flicked on her phone flashlight and followed the fresh scuffs. The design was clearer tonight, bolder, stretching nearly 2 meters across. She photographed every inch, measured stride lengths with the tape measure Ernesto kept in the storage closet. 32 centimeters, the average length of a tango step. Her throat dried. Each step placed by different dancers could quilt an image, but here every mark aligned flawlessly, as though choreographed onto invisible grid paper. Could someone be using the floor as carbon paper, imprinting a secret message under cover of dance? She opened the Banco del Plata brochure again. Now there was no mistaking it. The ratio of door to wall, angle of vestibule, even the hinge placements matched. She pressed a palm to the wood, cold despite the heat of the night. Someone inside La Milonga de la Luna was mapping a vault. Valentina considered going to the police. Inspector Norberto Gomez lived 2 blocks away. He checked out history novels weekly. But cozy mysteries in her beloved English section had taught her. Police like facts, not hunches. She needed proof and, more importantly, motive. She decided to snoop the lockers. Each student had a cubby. Damien's contained a spare shirt, deodorant, a leather notebook. She flipped through. Practice schedules, notes on posture. Nothing odd. Martina's locker overflowed with satin shoe bags, water bottle, and a folded sheet of graph paper. Heart-tripping, Valentina unfolded it. Inside lay diagrams similar to the floor pattern. She snapped a photo, refolded, and replaced it exactly. Outside, San Telmo's street lamps flickered. A cat mewed. Valentina walked home but barely felt the ground. Martina? But why would the star student of a modest tango studio care about a bank vault? The next day, she located Martina's Instagram. Glamorous photos with international partners, but also images of graffiti activism supporting her younger brother, currently in prison for hacking corporate accounts. Interesting. Martina understood codes. Friday's milonga usually attracted a larger crowd, and Ernesto decorated with strings of fairy lights. Valentina volunteered at the coat check, strategic perch for observation. She saw Martina arrive early, whisper to Ernesto, then glide onto the floor alone, tracing slow ochos, almost painting the wood. Damien arrived late, hair damp as though he had showered in a hurry. He greeted Valentina with a distracted smile, then joined Martina in hushed conversation near the water cooler. Their postures leaned conspiratorially, foreheads nearly touching. Valentina's stomach flopped. She watched them dance. Their movements were exquisite, too exquisite. Instead of social improvisation, they moved like engineers, step, pivot, cross, adorn. She realized they were rehearsing a routine pre-plotted to lay the next blueprint layer. Halfway through the night, she ducked outside to the alley and called Inspector Gomez's personal number from the directory. He answered with a sleepy, "Hola? Inspector, it's Valentina Cruz from the library. I think a robbery is being planned at Banco del Plata." Silence, then a sigh of recognition. "Miss Cruz, I enjoy your recommendation lists, but crime tips at midnight are new." "I can prove it," she insisted, outlining the scuff patterns, the match to the vault plans, Martina's graph paper, Damien's bank connection. Gomez hummed. "Interesting, but I need something tangible. Tools, blueprints, or confessions?" "I'll get them," she blurted before her brain caught up. "Be careful," he warned, oddly fatherly. "Call this number if you feel unsafe." Back inside, the cortina ended, and dancers changed partners. Valentina approached Ernesto under pretense of needing water. "Maestro, can I ask a favor? Could you close the studio for a private rehearsal Sunday morning? I'll pay." He eyed her with amusement. "You planning a solo show?" "A surprise for Tuesday's class." He nodded. "Very well, here's the key. Just leave it under the mat." Exactly what she hoped. Sunday dawned with spring sharpness. Valentina arrived before 8, disguised the carafe of mate as study fuel, but packed inside her tote a small container of cornstarch. She sprinkled a light dusting across the floor, nearly invisible, but sufficient to record shoe prints crisply. She turned on music and danced alone for 15 minutes, leaving a random, messy pattern. Then she locked up and slipped across the street to the cafe, where she nursed a media luna behind the window. If Damien and Martina planned a clandestine rehearsal, she reasoned, Sunday morning with a borrowed key was perfect. At 9:30, a taxi stopped. Martina emerged, ponytail swinging. Damien followed, carrying a duffel. Heart hammering, Valentina texted Inspector Gomez her location. Then she waited. Inside the studio, lights remained off. 10 minutes later, they snapped on. Valentina crept back across the street and pressed an ear to the door. Muffled footsteps, occasional scrape of metal, perhaps rulers. She cracked the door and peeked. The sight confirmed everything. Martina stood barefoot at the center, studying a laminated diagram, while Damien, in dance shoes, executed measured steps across the cornstarch-dusted floor. Each pivot left a pristine white line. Martina called adjustments like a stage director. 17 centimeters more left. Now the heel, mark the hinge. The blueprint blossomed. "Your bank's security cameras cover only the corridor?" she asked. "Yes," Damien answered, stepping. "The employee entrance is unmonitored after 11 p.m. Friday. Night guard does rounds every 20 minutes, plenty of time." Valentina's blood iced. She pulled back and dialed Gomez. "Come now," she whispered. "They're rehearsing. The vault plans are on the floor." "Stay hidden," the inspector ordered. Sirens wailed in the distance within a minute. Rare sprint for sleepy Sunday traffic. But inside the studio, music paused. They must have heard. Valentina's breath lodged. She had to stall them until police arrived. She pushed the door open loudly. "Maestro!" she called in a sing-song voice, pretending ignorance. Martina jerked, folding the laminated sheet behind her. Damien froze mid-step, cornstarch clouding around his ankles like smoke. "Oh," Valentina pretended surprise. "I reserved the studio. Didn't know anyone else. What's all this?" She stepped forward. White diagrams lay around them like snowy crop circles, unmistakable. Martina's eyes hardened. "Private rehearsal," she said flatly. Damien forced a smile. "We're testing choreography." "For a bank vault?" Valentina asked softly. Shock flickered in his eyes, so quick she almost missed it. Martina cursed under her breath. Outside, sirens screeched closer. Martina dashed to the duffel, pulled out a handgun so small it looked like a toy. Valentina's stomach dropped. Cozy mysteries rarely produced actual weapons. Suddenly fiction sharpened into steel. "Turn off the alarm, Valentina," Martina hissed, "and lock the door." "There is no alarm," Valentina stammered. Footsteps thundered in the hallway. Inspector Gomez and 2 officers. Martina grabbed Damien's forearm, dragged him toward the back exit that opened to the alley. Valentina lunged forward, more by instinct than bravery, and clamped both hands on the duffel strap. Death smelled like gun oil and starch. "Let go!" Martina snarled, whipping the pistol sideways. Valentina fell but kept the strap. The laminate sheet spilled. Floor plans, guard rotations, wiring diagrams. Evidence fluttered like oversized snowflakes. The door burst open. Gomez barked, "Policia!" Martina pivoted, gun raised. Damien stepped between her and the officers, palms up. "Marty, no!" he pleaded. But Martina's face was marble. Gomez leveled his service weapon. For one suspended breath, the studio, cradle of music and romance, became a powder keg. A single gunshot cracked, but from Gomez. Martina's pistol flew skittering across wood. She screamed, clutching her shoulder. Officers swarmed. Damien sank to his knees, tears and cornstarch streaking his trousers. Valentina slumped against the mirror, shaking. Later, as paramedics ferried Martina away and officers collected the duffel, Gomez knelt beside Valentina. "You all right?" She nodded, throat raw. "Martina planned everything," she whispered. "Her brother on the inside of a hacker ring, Damien with access codes." Damien, handcuffed, looked at her with red eyes. "I never meant," she said, "no one would be hurt, just corporate money." Valentina could not find words. She turned away. Outside, dawn brightness washed the alley. Ernesto arrived, summoned by the police, face ashen. He took in the scene, patrol cars, forensic cameras, white footprints littering his beloved floor. "I'll need a new polish," he murmured, attempting gallows humor. Weeks passed. Newspaper headlines lauded the Tango blueprint bust. Martina's bullet wound was superficial. She and her incarcerated brother now faced conspiracy charges. Damien cooperated fully, received a lighter sentence, and penned letters of apology Valentina kept but did not answer. The studio reopened after repairs. Ernesto invited Valentina for a quiet practice before the crowd returned. She hesitated at the threshold, remembering cornstarch ghosts, gunshots, but the polished boards gleamed invitingly, innocent again. Ernesto extended a hand. "May we dance, detective?" She laughed. "Only if you promise no secret vaults tonight." They embraced. The bandoneon wept a familiar melody. As they glided, Valentina glanced down. The floor reflected candlelight, unblemished. No right angles, only curving shadows of two sets of shoes sharing a story. Tango cadence carried her forward, and with each step the memory of scuff-drawn blueprints faded, leaving behind the simpler geometry of trust, breath, and music.